Let's bring in Iain Emerson, who's an editor from the famous Tartan Army magazine, the magazine for Scotland supporters, because, of course, Denis Law hailed from Scotland, born in Aberdeen back in 1940 and recognised as Scotland's best footballer of all time. Also the only Scotsman to have won the award for the world's best player, the Ballon d'Or. I'm not going to rub that in too much, Iain. But how will you remember him today?
Well, this is a really sad day, and, the images of him seeing him today, we've had a few days now to digest, since his passing, but he'll just be remembered as totally iconic. He was Scotland's greatest footballer, as you just said there, and certainly he scored the most goals for Scotland. I don't know, he's equal with Kenny Dalglish, another great player. But just everything about him was iconic. His goal celebrations, his blonde hair, his attitude to playing for Scotland, and, obviously his club teams, Man United, Torino, Man City, Huddersfield, the lot. And he gave everything for every club and every team he played for, and he was just respected throughout, and everyone loved him. So very sad. I can hear the bagpipes now. That's just bringing a tear to the eye.
All right, let's just listen in for a couple of minutes. And Iain, not just the bagpipes, but the saltaire on the back of that hearse also as it comes up to the cathedral. You were just talking about what made him so fantastic on the pitch. His playing style, being described a little earlier on Sky News as ruthless.
Yeah, ruthless. I remember there was an interview with an English teammate, and he said when it came to the Scotland-England game, he went to sort of say hello, shake Denis's hand, and Denis just stared straight through him, stood on his foot, and just went on to play, gave everything when he was playing. But there was never any animosity after it. He went in for really hard tackles and, good 50-50 balls, but there was never anything, nasty about it all. It was just pure will to win for his team. And just these bagpipes, just listen to him. He was just a hero to Scotland, but I know throughout the United Kingdom, everybody loved him. And I think that was reflected recently, with all the grounds giving a minute's applause to him. Bar none, everybody stood and clapped and applauded him. He was just, once. These players come along once in a lifetime, and luckily it was in our lifetime. We were lucky enough to see him.
You say, these come along once in a lifetime, but it wasn't just him. It was the Holy Trinity as well, wasn't it? George Best and Bobby Charlton and him. I mean, what a trio for one team to have at one time.
Exactly. I mean, the statue outside Old Trafford, is very fitting to them. And, you don't get... it's very rarely you get three players like that in the one team. So that was pretty unique. And, they'll always be remembered. And sadly, Denis was the last one of the three. It's nice also that he's got a statue up in Aberdeen, and it was nice that Denis saw that. He was there to see it unveiled with his iconic hand and finger in the air, goal celebration. So I think he knew how much he was loved, and he would have, loved this send-off he's getting with the saltire and the bagpipes. He would have loved that as well. In Manchester, of course, where he loved so much.
And not a bad word to say about him. We heard from Peter Schmeichel a little while ago saying he was just a great man, a great human being. I grew up with him as an icon. And Sir Alex Ferguson, in his tribute to him, also talked about his personality, being an incredible human being and just a really competitive human being. I mean, that is important, isn't it? It's not just being brilliant on the pitch and having the style and the flair. It's also being a decent human being along with it.
Yeah, I think it was a will to win. And there was a game when Scotland were beating England, a famous game that we still go on about in 1967 when we beat the world champions. And Jim Baxter, another fantastic player, was playing keepy-uppy with the ball. And Denis was just saying, no, we want more goals. He wanted to score more goals. He didn't want a showboat. He wanted the goals and the victory. And, and he was like that all through his career. I think one of the great things was, near the end of his career, he got to experience the World Cup. He played one game in Germany, and at least he got that, as well, because he deserved to be, his skills deserve to be shown on a world platform of the World Cup, and I'm glad he got that moment.
So he was lucky enough to see the tributes to him and recognition of his achievements throughout his life, wasn't he? But the last years of his life, affected by Alzheimer's and vascular dementia, he was the sixth member of the United squad that won the European Cup under Busby to suffer from dementia, wasn't he? And it was something that perhaps, the players of his generation weren't aware was a risk.
Yeah, I'm certain that's the case. And also the footballs were a lot heavier. So there wasn't the knowledge around that now, and now I think it's been identified, and they're taking steps, and there's ideas around how to minimise this going forward. But he scored some, the amount of headers he got and the goals he got. It's very sad we knew he was ill for some time now. It was sad that he got Alzheimer's. Indeed,
and he was awarded a CBE. He did a lot to raise awareness of Alzheimer's, didn't he? But also working, with young children, trying to encourage youngsters into the sport as well.
Yeah, he was always encouraging, the youngsters to come forward. And what better role model could you get than Denis Law? Imagine Denis Law coming to speak to you. I mean, I, as an adult, got lucky enough to meet him when he was signing his autobiography. In a shop, queued up to meet him and got to sign a couple of books I had of his. And, his nature and his humour and his friendliness to people, it was infectious. So it wasn't just on the playing field. I think as a human being, he was a great man. And, again, that's why people loved him. Yeah, I was just looking here. It was back in 2012 that he established the Denis Law Legacy Trust that tried to encourage community engagement and more children taking part in sport and really making the link that he felt between youth crime and antisocial behaviour and actually giving kids something to do, promoting their health and well-being and their creativity. And lots of community projects, Iain, up in Scotland, up in Aberdeen, didn't forget where he came from. Yeah, he's loved up in Aberdeen. He's loved through Scotland and the United Kingdom, obviously. But, I think it's fantastic that he put his energy back into that. He's, a man of the people, and he wanted new generations coming through and to give people the opportunity, because football is an opportunity for people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And, it's good for all aspects. It's good for your health. It's good for your fitness. It's good to keep yourself busy, learn new skills. So it was fantastic that he put his name towards that and encouraged that. Just another aspect of him. Yeah. So Alex Ferguson there. No attendance, though, today, we believe, from Sir Jim Radcliffe and the Glazier family. They haven't gotten well with fans in recent years. They were lambasted for not sending a representative to Bobby Charlton's funeral back in 2023. Do you think it's right that they've stayed away today? I'm not 100% sure about that whole set-up, not being that close to the Manchester United supporters. To hear a bit from what I've read online, I think most supporters weren't wanting them to attend. That's my understanding. But I'm not so up to date with all that side of it. But if there was anything that was going to bring unrest to a day that you should be paying your respects, it's probably best that they weren't there. But I'm sure in their own way they'll be paying their respects from wherever they are in America. We're seeing now mourners moving from the hearse, I think, into the cathedral now. Denis Law, his wife, Diana, they were together a long time, weren't they? Married over 60 years, and he met her in Aberdeen in a dance hall when they were just teenagers, and it worked for them. They married in 1962, and they went on to have 5 children, Gary, Robert, Iain, Andrew and Diana, all there today. Again, unusual often in public life and in great success to manage to sustain a marriage and a big, happy family as well. Yeah, and certainly that's the way it appeared. They were a happy family, and I've seen some of the photographs of Denis Law when he was displaying his Scotland caps, and he had his children all in front of him, all wearing a cap each. A very proud family, and obviously very proud of the father, which they should have been, quite rightly. But he seemed to have all that side of his life in order, and he was I'm sure, much loved by all members of his family.
Yeah, let's just remind people who are just tuning in, we are bringing you coverage of Denis Law's funeral. It's being held at Manchester Cathedral. This is the hearse. The hearse is pulled up outside the cathedral on Victoria Street in the heart of the city. We've already seen the family arrive as well. They were, of course, in that cortege following the hearse, as well as a number of former players, people like John O'Shea, Brian Kidd. We've got Ruud van Nistelrooy, Brian Robson, the former captain, is there. We think Sir David Brailsford's there as a representative of the club. United head coach Ruben Amorim, the club captain Bruno Fernandes there, and also Sir Alex Ferguson, former Manchester United manager from 1986 to 2013. Contributed to making the club one of the richest and most successful clubs in the world. He paid tribute to Denis Law after he died at the end of January, saying footballers should have a role model. I had it with Denis Law. I looked at him and said, that's what I want to be. He was a real gentleman. He didn't use his fame. He was so level-headed, so down to earth. He was a really competitive human being, no matter what the game, that was always there, fighting against the centre halves. The goalkeeper drops the ball and he was right on top of them. He was such a competitive human being. I think it was a natural thing for the supporters to associate him as their king. He was the best Scottish player of all time. Denis was a fantastic player. He was an incredible human being. We're also joined by Iain Emerson, the editor of the famous Tartan Army magazine. And Iain, he is so often associated with Manchester United, but what does he mean to Scotland as the greatest Scottish footballer of all time?
Oh, yeah, he was just, I'm sure every single bedroom in Scotland had pictures of Denis Law up on the wall with young boys growing up. And, even the younger generation now who didn't see him face to face, they've seen all the clips of him and they know that he is, the main man. He scored so many goals. He loved playing for his country. I mean, he made that very clear. He'd do it. There's a clip of him, getting interviewed one time, crying, saying, "The biggest accolade you can get in your career is being picked to play for your country." So, I think that just sums up his attitude, and certainly he was loved here by us all, and he'd be very sadly missed. But his legacy lives on, and we can only inspire new generations to come through to try and be as good as Denis was.
Let's just pause, Iain, as the coffin is taken into the cathedral. And Iain, there we heard the bagpipes and also football fans chanting. Perhaps as he would have liked it.
I think he would have loved this send-off. And you read out all the names of a lot of the people who were in attendance today. I'm sure if they'd held that, in Old Trafford, it would have been full with the people who want to pay their respects to him. I know many people who wanted to go down and there was no room in the cathedral for them. But luckily you've got the images that you're showing today that people can watch this and pay their own respects. But yeah, he would have loved it. Yeah, he would have loved the pipes here. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we saw down the scenes from Old Trafford a little bit earlier. There were lots of people gathered down there, as well as the youth team that was down there. And the hearse paused at that statue, at the Holy Trinity statue of George Best, Bobby Charlton and Denis Law. And we saw the youth team there. And the hearse paused as they laid wreaths there, which was a really, really lovely moment. The flags also at half-mast at the stadium. So two places, really, where people have gathered today to remember Denis Law. And I thought it was really lovely. On the side of Old Trafford, there we are, those are the pictures from a little earlier. On the side of Old Trafford were his dates, 1940 to 2025, and the legend of the King. And it is sad, isn't it, Iain, that we talk about the Holy Trinity, that he was the last of them, he was the last one to go. How's football changed since those days, do you think?
Well, it's almost like a non-contact sport now. You know, in the days of Denis Law and George Best and Charlton were playing, you just need to look at the footage and you'll see pitches, you know, the pitches and like a plough field, and the tackles going in, you know, real strong tackles going in, and I think that's the biggest difference now.
Yeah, absolutely. Iain, thanks so much. Iain Emerson there, the editor of the famous Tartan Army magazine.